So it's election day and we just need to sit down and have a little conversation about patience. We all have to be patient when it comes to election results tonight. We could know if it's going to be Trump or Harris tonight, early, or not. Now don't forget, the balance of power in the House and the Senate also up for grabs tonight in this election, and that could also perhaps take some time to figure out. Now I know for some of you this is your first election, and even if it's not, I'm sure your anxiety level is really high right now. I get it. And because of this thing right here, none of us have any patience anymore because everything we want shows up immediately. But we all just have to remember that that's not how vote counting works. It could take time. It could take hours. It could take maybe a day, maybe a few days before we even know a projected winner of this presidential race. And before you jump into the comments and start screaming about how you've always known who won the presidential election on election night, no, you haven't. And I'm going to explain why in a second. But first, I want to focus on tonight. So you're going to start getting vote totals from some states faster than others. That's not a conspiracy. It's logic. Timing of election results comes down to four main things. One, when the polls close and what the state rules are for when counting can begin. Two, how close those races are. Three, how long it'll take elections officials to verify and process all the absentee and mail ballots. And four, will there be recounts or lawsuits? Now, let's address those of you who are convinced that you've known who won on election night. Stop it. You haven't. You've actually never officially known who wins the office of President of the United States on election night because the states don't certify their elections on election night. That comes days or weeks later. What you've actually known is who the projected winner is that the media calls, which I talked all about in this video yesterday. And the thing is, just because the media projects a winner doesn't mean the vote counting stops. It keeps going. But usually by then, you've tuned this all out because the candidate who loses the projection usually concedes the race. Now, obviously that didn't happen in 2020 or in the year 2000. But let's talk about projected winners for a second. You still technically haven't always known who the projected winner is on election night either. In the modern era, a projected winner is often called in the early morning hours of the next day after the election or the afternoon after the election. But those winner projections take longer to make, especially when the race is close. And there are several logical reasons for that. This country has gotten more and more polarized, and as a result, races have become tighter and tighter, especially in swing states that determine who gets to be president. Not to mention, more Americans than ever are participating in the voting process. We had the highest voter turnout ever in 2020. Almost 67% of eligible Americans cast a ballot in that election. That's more than 158 million people. And when you look at the average voter turnout for presidential elections going back to the year 2000, we're seeing an average of more than 62% of eligible Americans casting a ballot. That's a lot of ballots to count. So many more than we saw in the 1990s and the 1980s. Not to mention all the new and different laws and restrictions that elections officials have to follow when it comes to when they can count votes and how they can count votes. Of course, in 2020, there was also the COVID issue, which strained the archaic vote counting systems in several states. And in a few swing states, the vote count was really close in 2020 between Trump and Biden, and it just took time to count and verify all of those ballots correctly. Now, I know that's a lot of information, but if it helps, I've covered elections for more than 20 years as a professional journalist, and I'm telling you, there are systems in place in every single state to handle every type of election issue that comes up. So just stay calm, and remember, candidates do not choose who wins. The voter decides who wins.